Turning now to the surprise action today by President Biden commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 federal prisoners currently on death row, commuting those sentences to life without parole. Now, this comes, of course, before the president-elect who supports capital punishment takes office. In his statement today, he wrote, "In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted."
Oh, my God, this guy.
Schmidt of Missouri, member of the Armed Services, Commerce, and Joint Economic Committees. He was also the former Attorney General of Missouri, joins us now. So what do you think of these commutations? 37 out of 40 death row inmates, including people who were responsible for taking the lives of young children. Biden says this is to ensure a fair and effective justice system.
Oh, my God.
For the family members of the victims, how is that in any way doing that?
It's not. It's not.
It isn't, and it's 2 days before Christmas. I can only imagine the grief and the shock that these families are experiencing as they get ready for the holidays, remembering the loved ones that were lost and now having to deal with this sort of insult to injury. And I think Joe Biden, in his effort to Trump-proof, we saw some of that, for the next administration, whether it's hiding DEI workers or.
Yeah, this piece of shit gets to sit around at Christmas time, too, with his piece of crap pardoned son that he has with him, too.
Things at the border. This is just beyond the pale. And I think he's cementing his status as one of the worst presidents in American history, certainly this side of Woodrow Wilson. And I think, John, in that intro, you told it's important, as a former prosecutor myself, I think it's important to talk about the victims here. Lexis Roberts went on a camping trip with her mother and Thomas Sanders. Thomas Sanders, on the way back, took her mother out and executed her in cold blood in front of Lexis, then slit Lexis Roberts' throat and let her die in the woods. This is someone that Joe Biden, on the eve of Christmas, decided to commute his sentence. This is nuts. This is totally nuts. And so the outrage is real. It's justified. And again, Joe Biden on his way out is, again, cementing his status as one of our worst presidents.
Now, I'm going to apologize because we're going to hear a couple stories here, and this is very short about horrible and disgusting crimes. But just understand, there is 35 more stories of these animals either butchering or murdering people, taking lives, justly convicted of these crimes in court by a judge, jury, the whole thing.
So President-elect Donald Trump is now slamming President Biden's 11th hour commutations of nearly all federal death row inmates. Trump posting on Truth Social that once he's in the White House, he will, quote, direct the Justice Department to vigorously pursue the death penalty to protect American families and children from violent rapists. We will be a nation of law and order again.
She left murderers and monsters out. That should have been said, too, because that's what these freaking people are.
Meanwhile, an outpouring of outrage and disbelief from relatives of the victims of those death row inmates set free by Biden. One person whose sister was fatally strangled is now speaking out, telling the New York Post, quote, why does he need to get special treatment? He's just going to risk other people. What justification does Biden have for doing this? I want to have him explain to us, to our faces, why he chose to give them mercy when they didn't give other people mercy.
You know why he won't? Because he's not a man. He's a shell of a corpse that's in the White House, is what he is. No backbone, spineless, just a total piece of shit human being.
Mauricio, Barbara White's family told us this is a reprehensible decision, and they say it is so tough coming so close to Christmas. They say they've waited nearly 18 years for their daughter's killer to be put to death, calling that their final closure. They just weren't prepared for that to change. Barbara White's family says she was getting her life together when the young mother was murdered in an Alexandria apartment in November 1993. She was just 19 years old when killers broke in, beat, electrocuted, stabbed, and drowned her, all because a man named Thomas Hager feared she'd rat him out. Reached by phone today, Barbara's father, Paul, gave us this photograph of her from an earlier age. It was Paul who more than 30 years ago found his daughter's body floating in a bathtub. His 13-month-old granddaughter left alone with her mother's body and jars of open baby food. Hager was tried 14 years later in an Alexandria federal court where a jury found Hager's crime was especially heinous, cruel, or...
Okay, first of all, the fact that it took 14 years, oh, our justice system sucks so bad.
Depraved. Jurors decided then Hager showed no remorse and deserved the death penalty. He's been on the federal death row in Terre Haute, Indiana ever since. Early this morning, the White House announced Hager's was one of 37 death sentences President Joe Biden commuted to life in prison. Make no mistake, the president said, I condemn these murderers, grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, and ache for all the families who have suffered.
You know what's even more despicable? That this asshole got out and made a statement after doing what he did to these families. God almighty, I can't say it enough. This guy is such a fucking asshole.
Unimaginable and irreparable loss. Biden adding, I am more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level. And Barbara's death remain in federal prison, but they're expected to be released from custody entirely next year. Reached by phone, Thomas Hager's mother told News 4 she found out her son's sentence had been commuted from her son's attorney this morning, but
murdered Naval Officer Amanda Snell. He also raped and murdered an 8 and 9-year-old child, 2 girls. You see those girls here. Their names are Laura Hobbs and Crystal Tobias, next to Naval Officer Amanda Snell. Do you think, Carl, that Joe Biden knows the names Laura Hobbs and Crystal Tobias and even knew this?
No, absolutely not. Look, not mention a single victim, I suspect, of a murder that he has now commuted the sentence to life in prison. I mean, this is astonishing. And to do it on the eve of Christmas, think about those families who lost a loved one and how they're going to be dealing with that trauma during what ought to be one of the most beautiful moments of the year.
Well, that's such a
God bless them, and God question why Joe Biden did this.
That's such a great point on multiple levels, Carl. The whether or not you're morally equating one heinous act versus another, but specifically with the timing, you worked in the White House. Was there any reason that it had to be done right before the most sentimental holiday, stabbing just a dagger of grief to these families now?
I know this guy's like really going over the top, and he should be, because he's probably just as freaking pissed off.
Reacting, could it have waited till after the holidays, perhaps in the new year?
Sure, he could have. But look, let's go back to the essential nature of this, which is Joe Biden has made a decision that he was so offensive in his language. He said, I believe in a fair legal system. Well, these men and women were fairly tried and held in a court of law by a jury of their peers to have committed a heinous act, and were judged accordingly and granted the death penalty. And he decides this is not a case where,
think about that.
While they were sitting in prison, they did something incredible. They saved the life of a fellow inmate, or they found God and entered a religious order, or, no, they did. There's no attempt to say, well, these people deserve.
Look at that corpse with skin on it.
To have their sentence commuted because of things that they've done since the time that they were found guilty. It is a simple act that they were found guilty of a crime so heinous that they were given the death penalty that has drawn the mercy of Joe Biden. Of course, except for the 3 that, for some reason, he's not granting a commutation of their death sentence.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This was a super tough one to do. This one was super tough to do. I can't even, the level of anger that I felt, not only hearing about this for the first time, but then having to watch this and hear about these poor families that are just suffering for so many years. And then to have this happen, like their chance of justice was completely just pissed away and done away with, because we have such a fantastic corpse. I'm going to keep calling him that, because that's all he is. He's a corpse in the office. He's not. This guy's such a piece of shit. It's amazing. He's doing so much shit right now in the last 30 days than he's probably done in 4 years. To all the people that voted for him, thank you so much for giving us such a wonderful human being to run the free world. I want to end this video by saying, like, to all the parents, or if anybody's watching this video that had victims from any of these, I am so sorry that you had to deal with what you had to deal with. Your whole existence of pain that you've had to endure. I can't even imagine in court what you had to relive and had to experience for the first time. I'm sorry that justice did not prevail. I think this provision is really asinine. I don't think president should be able to pardon people. I think this is such a stupid thing to have for a president to be able to do. I don't care who the president is, and that goes for Trump too. It's just stupid. These people went to jail, they went to court, they were found guilty by a judge, jury, court, the whole thing. Justice was served, and then it gets pulled. Boggles me. I do appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for all the subscribers, people that have been watching. Please comment below so I can respond. I love hearing from you guys. If there's anything you want me to cover, I'll be glad to take that into consideration for sure. Everybody, please take care of yourself. I hope you had a great Christmas. I hope you have a great New Year. To the families, once again, I'm extremely sorry from the bottom of my heart. This is Van Johnson. Thank you for watching. Be safe. Take care. I'll see you all soon.